What's up guys, it's Molly, and once again here we are for another Whirlwind season. Right, Whirlwind is still, and Barbarian generally, still one of, if not the best class in the game. Whirlwind, it's not the strongest build on Barbarian, at least for pit or tower pushing, but for general play it's still one if not the fastest. It can clear everything, it's really easy to play. It's generally speaking the best build for like general gameplay. Now, we did get some nerfs, but even though you saw some big numbers, they were not actually as big as you thought, right? Yes, Limitless Rage is gone, we're no longer using that. Yes, Overpower is gone, it got nerfed for everyone, actually. Resolve stacking is also gone, generally speaking, so no more life builds being incredibly tanky. And yes, Selig did get a nerf. That being said, this season Selig actually does a lot more damage comparatively to Life. Before this season, Life was actually more damage. Now they are incredibly close, and Selig is still quite tanky. It's not ungodly tanky like it was before, that you were basically immortal, but it's still quite tanky. Once you actually get the Selig online, you will find it very hard to die. Like, you still have more than enough damage to do Mephisto in a couple of seconds on the PTR, as you can see. You still can do 130 plus pit once you actually get your gear going. You still, of course, if you do 130 pit, you can easily speed farm T12, and you're incredibly fast, especially now. It's still incredibly good, okay? It's one of, if not the best general builds for Season 14 once again, so I'm a happy boy. Regardless. On this video, we're gonna cover the leveling a bit real quick, and then we're gonna jump into the endgame build guide, alright? So starting off here on the leveling, of course, on max roll. When it comes to gear, generally speaking, you only want three things, basically. You want strength life on everything that you can get it on, and then if you can get some Fury regen over here. This will allow you to spin for longer without having to use either Stomp or Lunging Strike, right? It's very nice if you can get Fury regen. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. Honestly, while leveling, it doesn't matter too much. Now, actually going here over the runes you can see here, by the way, just real quick. Cirqua, we no longer have the wolves. Actually, let's talk about this. We no longer have the wolves, which means we don't have vulnerable while leveling, but running Cirqua actually gives you an insane amount of movement speed. And of course, Monigar for crit chance, which is very nice. Now, going over our skills actually here. So starting off, you're gonna start with lunging. You're gonna get Whirlwind right away. Make sure to take this passive on lunging. It just gives you berserking every now and again while leveling, which is very strong. Of course, passive here, I'm taking the cost damage bonus. This gives you an insane amount of damage, although it makes Whirlwind cost a bit more. Now, if you want to Whirlwind for longer, you can take the movement speed instead. That being said, leveling is all about bursts of damage. Whenever you find an elite, you want to be able to just blow it up, right? So it's a lot better if you play with this, but if you don't like it, you know, it doesn't hurt too much. The third ability we're gonna be picking up is Ground Stomp. Ground Stomp is literally only here to give you a burst of resource, so you don't have to spend as much time using lunging. That's it, okay? Now, going over here, level 15, whenever you get level 15, you get Tornado right away. The Dust Devils are still the best setup for Whirlwind. It's incredibly strong, and it scales the best into late game. At level 30 or something, you can get Winding. Winding is decent for leveling. It's not better than Dust Devils, and again, Dust Devils just scales better, so it is what it is. The other passive we're going to be taking on Whirlwind is, of course, going to be the channel damage. Just for a bit of damage, if you channel it for a bit. You're not going to be channeling it forever, it is what it is, but it's still a bit more damage. On lunging here, we're taking Skewer to help a bit with single target. If you run out of resource, at least your lunging will also be doing some damage. We don't actually take the Devil, because this thing doesn't really do damage, okay? It is what it is. Other than that, we're gonna be taking one passive here, additional Fury Gen on the Stomp. You can take the one that gives you more Stomp, but you're just spending more time casting Stomp and less time casting Whirlwind, so just get more for your buck on the first Stomp, alright? It's much better. After that, we're gonna be going down here, taking Warcry, get the passive for Ferocity. This just gives you a bit of attack speed. Depending on the amount of attack speed you have on your gear, you might be able to get an additional attack speed breakpoint, which will increase your damage. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. You can forego this if you don't like it and just take the slow, but slow doesn't really do anything. Other than that, of course, you're increasing its duration, and you're taking Mighty Roar for the increased berserking, right? Just another source of berserking and a bit more damage, right? Other than that, we keep going down to the next one, which is going to be our ultimate. Here, you're going to be running Call of the Ancients. Wrath of Berserker is actually better this season, and we're going to be running it on the endgame. That being said, it's not quite good just yet. So for leveling, we stick to Call of the Ancients. Now, on Call of the Ancients, you do have some options here. You either go for Empowered, to benefit a lot from the attack speed bonus and damage bonus here, and the just general damage bonus down here. But as you can see, both of them now scale with the amount of Ancient. So taking Empowered, which does not remove your Ancients, is actually quite good and gives you a big burst of damage. Alternatively, you can just go with Highlander. Highlander is no longer as good as it was last season, because last season you got this full bonus, now you get it per Ancient, which means if you run Highlander, you don't actually get as much out of it. Highlander gives you more consistent damage. That being said, again, while leveling, it's all about doing bursts of damage. It's all about you saving your Call of the Ancients, you get to a tough elite or a boss, you pop Call of the Ancients, you blow it up, right? Since it's more about burst damage, Empowered, for me, and generally speaking, it's the best one. If you'd like to run Highlander instead, up to you, but I do recommend the Empowered one. Now, going over the last one here, the last skill we're going to be taking, Challenging Shout. Challenging Shout is incredibly good. Not only is it decent defensively, it also gives you some damage buff thanks to this damage bonus here. Of course, it's only for against 5 enemies, but if you're fighting an elite, you probably don't have a lot of enemies nearby. Those ones already died to the Death Devils, so it's still a big damage increase. Of course, you can take increased duration just to make yourself a bit tankier, so you can do higher difficulties, right? Because one thing with Whirlwind leveling, once you get to level 50, between level 15 and level 30, once you get all your skills, you will be able to go up to Penitent. It's kind of crazy, okay? Other than that, just take Brawl. Sadly, Raging here, the 20% damage is only for Challenging Shout itself. Sadly, we can take it. Just take Brawl so you're a bit tankier again, right? Other than that, as you saw here earlier, you do max Whirlwind before you actually take any of the skills. You do 3 skills until you max Whirlwind. After that, you start increasing your skills. And once you get all your skills, first of all, you max out Warcry. Second of all, you max out Challenging Shout. Third of all, you max out your ultimate. You can max your ultimate before you max out Challenging Shout. Alternatively, you can put points into lunging to improve your single target. I didn't find a need for it because Whirlwind just does so much damage. But yeah, other than that, that's gonna be it for the leveling. There's not, you can see here, we can go over the mercenaries and stuff like that, but you'll have the link down below if you want to check all of this. This is the most important part. The skill while leveling is really important, and always as well, make sure to actually, where's the thing? Make sure to actually upgrade your weapon. Your main weapon is going to be your polearm. Ideally, it doesn't really matter too much while leveling. Ideally, you want polearm because polearm just has a better specialization, but if you get a higher damage to end of mace, just use that one. You just leave Whirlwind as default, the first one, and it will automatically pick the weapon with the most damage, okay? And that's all you care about. You don't really care about anything else. Now, while leveling, there's some uniques that you can get, like Gore's the Scam is really good and stuff like that. For that, if you go here, we're gonna skip here a bit. It's not here just yet. It's gonna be added very soon. But if you go here to the planner, you can see that you do have multiple filters now. I have one here for Whirlwind leveling. This one just basically highlights the charms you want, gear that has strength and life, gear that has the fury per second, white gear for the uniques you want, so helmet, gloves, sword, and helmet, club, sword, and pants, of course, for T-bolts. And it also highlights those same uniques. This is not needed too much while leveling, although it makes it faster because you click an item and whenever it drops, you know, right away you want to look at that item because you likely want to keep it right away because it's more than likely going to be an upgrade. Other than that, as you can see here, we have one specific for start and mid game, one for whenever you start going to the end game, and one whenever you feel like you already got really great gear and you're just trying to get the best of the best gear. That's when you swap to the maximum filter here, right? Now, actually going over the end game here, as you can see, we're gonna be running Selig, but before we get to Selig, we actually have to talk about the starter a bit. When it comes to your skills here, we're gonna be swapping Stomp for Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry is incredibly good. And of course, we're gonna be swapping Call of the Ancient to the one that gives you more consistent damage now, because you don't need burst damage as much, because ideally you're gonna be spinning for a while. We still have lunging here, because unless you got everything that's here in the guide, which some of these resource aspects can be a bit rare, you still want to have lunging there to help you out, and it also gives you some mobility, right? Some aspects I do want to point out here, as you can see I go over them here. You do want to prioritize getting aspect of anger management. Make sure to gamble gloves. Gloves not only gives you a chance of getting anger management, it also gives you a really good chance of getting the other offensive aspects, which will bump your damage up a bit. Other than that, try to gamble for Gores and T-bolts. T-bolts this season, it's actually going to be easier to get than last season because the new boss from the event actually just dropped a bunch of generic uniques, so you can farm T-bolts there whenever you start trying to go for the mid game, right? Other than that, we keep the same runes. Skills we already covered. The Paragon, we're gonna cover all of them together, right? So swapping here to the mid game, the only thing we actually take here that's really important, it's going to be the uniques, right? First of all, T-bolts. T-bolts is incredibly good, as I told you earlier, you do want to gamble for this somewhat early. T-bolts just gives you an insane amount of resource, 50 resource per second, just by proccing Unstoppable. And would you look what we have here? Wrath of the Berserker, yeah, it's finally coming back. Wrath of the Berserker is incredibly good now. 30% damage while you use it, and it gives you 100% Unstoppable. It already gave that, but the 30% damage really sealed the deal for us. It's good enough for us to use it now, and since we are not as tankier as we were last season, right, the Unstoppable is actually quite clutch to make sure you don't get stunned and killed. Now, you do want some cooldown. As you can see, we start taking some cooldown in a bunch of places here. As you can see, you can take it on the amulet as well if you want to. You just want to get it down to 30, below 35 ideally. 35 is kind of the sweet spot. If you have 35 and you have the shouts and you have Marshall on the Paragon board, which we'll cover in a second, you will be able to have basically 100% uptime. If for some reason it fails, you also have Iron Skin here. Iron Skin with very low cooldown is incredibly good defensively, and also procs T-bolts for you, right? Which is incredible. You just have 50% resource. You don't need anything more than this. Other than that, Tuskhelm is an incredibly strong helmet now. All the generic helmets got nerfed. It's even better than Mythics now. It's an incredibly good helmet now. Gores, of course, if you're playing Whirlwind, you're playing with Gores. And lastly, of course, Ramaladnis. Now, Ramaladnis, I do want to preface this again. Ramaladnis, make sure you're not running a really bad Ramaladnis. Try to get one with like above 0.45. Remember, you can gamble it on the cube to upgrade it. And getting a 0.45, since it drops from 35 to 50, it's like a 1 in 3 generally speaking. So try to get a decent one. If you don't have a decent one, you're probably better off just running a legendary weapon with another offensive aspect, alright? One thing to talk about here that I forgot to talk on the starter one, we're going to be running Crucible. Now, once you actually get to the mid game here, you could potentially run the other one, the one that makes you a big Barbarian. That being said, whenever you go to the end game, you're gonna swap back to Crucible, so I just thought it was better just to keep Crucible. The damage increase it would give you, it's not big enough to justify you constantly trying to get some good charms. I would just rather focus on getting charms on Marshall on a single one, because that's the one you're going to be using for the end game, right? Other than that, the charm is gonna be Fists of Fate. Fists of Fate is just generically good. There's another one that you could theoretically run, which is Blood Mad Idol. Blood Mad Idol is basically double the amount of Fists of Fate. That being said, Blood Mad Idol, good luck surviving with the damage it gives you, right? It's not really survivable for us. And sadly, it does not work with Selig as far as I know, so rip. One thing though, for survivability, since we're already talking about it, we're gonna be running Ke here. Ke, together with Pocket, will just give you a shield every 4 or 5 seconds. You don't have 100% uptime on it, but together with Ke and Iron Skin, you should not have any issues surviving, okay? Now, jumping up to the end game. This is the one we all care about, right? Selig. Now, the reason I'm actually recommending Selig this season and last season I wasn't is because last season playing Selig was actually giving up a good amount of damage. Now, why isn't it this season? Well, this season, as you can see, Selig can actually get some pretty good stats, right? These are pretty good stats already, and of course, if you're not going for cooldown because of Wrath the Berserker, you could potentially even get crit damage there. You can get really good stats on Selig. Not only that, but Ramaladness is slightly better now. It goes from 0.5 to 0.65, which means Fury gets a lot more value than it did last season. This double Fury you got here gets a lot more value, and that's why we actually go with Selig. Now, Selig is technically still slightly less damage, but considering the survivability issues and the fact that I don't even think it's worth 1 tier of bit, the damage you're losing, I'm just recommending Selig as default because you have to fix survivability on the other variants, and at that point you're probably already losing more damage. Selig is just default good. Now, when it comes to the charms, you can keep running Fist of Fate if you want damage, but as you know, Whirlwind is not lacking damage at all. Once you get to a good point, just run Endurance Fight, okay? Endurance Fight, you'll be able to tank. You still are able to tank some miscellaneous stuff on for example Mephisto. You cannot tank everything. You will still have to avoid stuff. But the random missiles and stuff, it sometimes hits you. It will not hurt you if you're running Endurance Fight. The thing with Endurance Fight that a lot of people don't realize is that yes, it got nerfed from 40 to 20, but that's not why we are running Endurance Fight, okay? The reason Endurance Fight is really strong with Selig is that it basically makes all the damage you take be damage over time. And what that means is as long as you have enough resource regen to combat that damage over time, you're never taking damage, which also means that your Ramaladness is taking full benefit from max resource, right? It's incredibly good. It smooths out your damage. It smooths out damage intake. I would just recommending running with by default, but if you feel like you really want to squeeze a bit more damage, you can of course keep running Fists of Fate. Now, I know everyone is gonna ask this, so I'm gonna cover this here since we're already talking about what's the best ratio here. It's gonna depend a bit on your gear, right? Because you can get some ranks here, you can get some ranks somewhere else, I believe. Regardless, generally speaking, the best ratio is gonna be 4 martial skills, as you can see, 4 of them, and 2 resource. This is the best ratio for damage. Of course, if you want to be a bit more defensive, if you're playing hardcore or something like that, forgo maybe 2 of the 2 or more if you want to be even safer of the resource one, the martial skill ones, and take some other maximum resources, right? Now, other than that, the other mythics you're going to be running Starless. Starless is technically speaking slightly less damage, okay? That being said, again, it's resource. You're spending a lot less resource, which means you have a lot more resource regen, aka you're much harder to kill. The damage you lose now that Starless can actually get a bunch of stats is very minimal. It's basically instead of running a 60% multiplier, you're running a 50%. It's not that big at all. And again, you are way tankier. If you want to squeeze a bit of more damage and making gearing, the gearing part is actually the big one. Gearing is a bit easier if you run a legendary, especially early on. but Starless will make you tankier, indirectly. And the big star of the show, Grandfather. You can actually run Grandfather on Solid builds now because Grandfather no longer is forced to roll with life. Now, what you want on Grandfather is that very juicy critical strike chance. It just makes capping crit incredibly easy, and as you probably saw on some of my gear here, I'm actually taking some attack speed. We're actually scaling attack speed. Now, Grandfather, again, incredibly good critical strike chance. The multiplier is still decent. It's still a 60% multiplier on one-hander, on the Grandfather, because of two-hander it's a 120. It's not as good as, for example, Crushing, but it's almost as good, and of course Grandfather just gives you 34, or if you don't have the GA, it's like 29.7 critical strike chance. It's 1/3 of your critical strike chance basically, so incredibly good as you can see. And remember, all the uniques here, I know some of them, like for example T-Bolts, Tuskhelm and stuff like that, they drop with life, but this season you can actually go to the enchanter and roll one of the stats on the item. So for example, Tuskhelm, if I remember correctly, drops with strength and life, which means you want a Tuskhelm to drop with strength, life, and either resource, cooldown, or resists. Armor is also decent instead of resists, and then you just roll the life to either resource or cooldown depending on what you're missing, right? And that's it, right? Same thing for T-Bolt, same thing for a lot of things here. For example, as you can see, I have strength on Melted Art of Selig. The reason is, ideally I would not want to run strength, but Melted Art of Selig always drops with strength and resource gen. Since resource gen doesn't really give me damage, I just dropped that one for strength. Strength is still a good multiplier. It's not as good, for example, critical strike damage, but it's still very, very decent. Now, going over the runes here. We're gonna talk about the skills in a second. Going over the runes, okay? Runes... Oh, actually, no. Before we go to the runes, the attack speed. Attack speed scaling can be a bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. For that, you have two resources here that we're gonna cover. You have the attack speed mechanics over here, and you also have... Oh, it's not actually here. Okay, let's actually talk about the attack speed mechanics. The attack speed mechanics over here, as you can see, Ava and I believe it was Ava and Icy Troll that did all of this attack speed breakpoints. As you can see here, you have breakpoints for all the skills on all the classes. Now, of course, we only care about Whirlwind, so just gonna close all of this. Whirlwind over here, of course, first. Now, as you can see here, you might not quite understand how this works, how much attack speed you actually need and stuff like that. It's going to be on the FAQ of the guide. I forgot to put it there. But if we actually go, I'm going to leave this link here because I think it's not fully up to date yet. But this part is up to date. This part is still up to date. As you can see, it says it's archived. The information here is not fully up to date, but the attack speed part still is. And I'm going to put this on the guide for you guys, because I forgot to put it on the FAQ. But as you can see, we are using two-handed mace as our main weapon, by the way, I forgot to mention that. And as you can see, this is the attack speed you can go for. On the guide, we are currently going for this one. On the endgame guide, we're going for the 67.2. As long as you get 67.2, you're more than good. Of course, you're gonna have to go a bit over it, depending on the gear you have. But this is the one you're gonna be aiming for. On the push one, we actually are going to go for 91. And going back here, oh, wrong one. Going back over here, now let's talk about the runes. Oh, the runes are here just to give you movement speed and movement, right? Cal, because Barbarian, like this setup does not need to be tankier from the runes, and it does not need more damage from the runes, or it would actually be crit chance, but Grandfather, okay? Now, Ignical just gonna be basically giving you the rally from the Paladin constantly. You're gonna have 100% uptime on this, and rally actually it gives you 15% movement speed. It might not seem a lot, but it's 15% that goes over the movement speed gap, which is incredibly good. Other than that, we're gonna be running Bakja. Bakja, running around, you're gonna get the teleport. You proc the teleport, you blink, you can go over stuff, right? You also have Leap. Again, you're not really using Leap often. Leap is only here for movement. If there's a gap and you don't have Ja, you use Leap. And since you are stacking attack speed, Leap is actually quite fast. Every time you cast Leap, you can cast like 3 or 4 of them because of the specialization that we have, which we're gonna cover in a second, so it's actually incredibly good. Since we're actually talking about Leap already, let's jump into the skills section, right? Let's start there. So, starting off, Whirlwind is still gonna be the same. You're gonna be taking the stabs. The stabs just the best damage for Whirlwind later on. You're also gonna be taking the cost damage bonus here, because, you know, your T-Bolts can easily take care of this Fury and more. Now, you do have an option here. If you feel like you're already one-shotting stuff and you do want to go even faster, you can take the movement speed increase. I wouldn't recommend it. I think the damage is just better. But other than that, channel damage bonus, the other one, the weaken, doesn't really matter, right? Other than that, Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry, it's really good here. You're gonna be taking the one that gives you... You can go between Fortify and Duration. It doesn't really matter because you have another source of Fortify on the build, and with Soling you shouldn't really be losing it. But if you don't mind clicking it a bit more often, you can easily build up your Fortify just to benefit from all the damage bonus, okay? The other one is going to be booming, just in even more movement speed, even more resource generation. By the way, this movement speed goes over the movement speed cap, which will just make you really zoomy. And the resource will just buff T-Bolts, so you are actually tankier, right? Other than that, potency again to buff the amount of resource you're getting. Now, you won't have enough points to put into Rallying Cry. Sadly, you can take some points away from War Cry if you want to be more defensive, because this just gives you more regen, right? But I didn't find it worth it. Now, of course, Challenging Shout, you're going to be maxing it out for the biggest damage reduction. You're also going to be taking Duration. Now, the reason you're taking Duration instead of Weaken, Duration does two things. There's one thing, actually, gives you duration, but you don't really care about the duration because you have more than enough of time things to cool down. But the reason you actually take duration is because of Ball. The damage reduction from Ball decays over its duration, so if it's longer, it will decay slower. If it's decaying slower, if you cast it midway, you will only lose maybe 10% of the damage reduction instead of losing the full 20, right? So it just gives you a much better DR uptime, right? A bigger DR, I guess. Other than that, of course, the damage multi. This sadly doesn't work on bosses this season. I don't know why they did that. It doesn't work on bosses anymore, but just for elites in general, clear is still pretty good. Now, Warcry, incredibly good. You do have some options here. You're always going to be taking Mighty Roar. You don't care about the Berserking, but just 10%. Solo, multiple enemies, it doesn't matter. Two things here. You can either go Duration. I do recommend Duration because you just have Exploit taking care of Vulnerable for you on general play. But if you're fighting a boss, if you're fighting Mephisto or something and you want a bit more vulnerable uptime, you'll be taking the Vulnerable one here. You'll get a bit less damage from the uptime on Warcry, but, you know, Vulnerable will be taking here for the Vulnerable uptime. I do take this for the push version, but for the end game, for general play, I don't think it's worth it. Exploit is more than good enough. The other one here is going to be Ferocity. Now, Ferocity will actually help you get 1 or 2 extra attack speed breakpoints on Whirlwind, which will increase your damage quite significantly. Thanks to the very low cooldown we have on Warcry, you can easily build this up, which is incredibly good, especially if you really want to build this up consistently. The Home Rune is going to be the way, but even if you don't, just having it every now and again will give you more attack speed. Now, do remember, Whirlwind snapshots attack speed. So if you start whirlwinding before you have the stacks, you will not actually benefit from the attack speed until you stop spinning and get the stacks back. The thing is, it also works the other way around. Let's say you have the stacks and you start spinning, you have additional attack speed, you lose the stacks, but as long as you keep channeling Whirlwind, you will keep the same attack speed. So, you know, one hand gives it, the other takes it away, but, you know, the same one that takes it away also gives it. So, you know, it's both good and bad at the same time. Now, of course, we're going to be running Leap. Leap is literally only here, like we were talking about earlier, just for mobility. Now, thanks to Earth Shatter here, you'll be able to cast, especially if you have a good amount of attack speed, you'll be able to cast 2 or 3 extra leaps just to zoom around the map real quick, which is incredibly good, and to leap over barriers and stuff like that. I'm taking 1 point here in Fury Regeneration. You don't need to, but this just makes you healthier because Leap just gives you Fury. Fury is your HP, which is very nice, right? And lastly, of course, finally coming back, Wrath of the Berserker. There we go. So Wrath of the Berserker now actually has a 30% damage multi, which is incredibly good. And it gives you 100% uptime on Unstoppable because yes, you might think, oh, it only lasts 16 seconds, where actually, you know, it lasts a bit more because you get 5 more seconds thanks to Maximum Carnage, and you'll easily be able to build this up. Now you might think it's only 21 seconds. How the hell do you reduce this? Well, with your shouts. You're going to be running a glyph we're going to talk about here in a second. That will just make your shouts martial, right? Will just make your shouts reduce the cooldown of Wrath of Berserker. So with that, you'll have 100% uptime, which is amazing. Of course, not only is it unstoppable, the Berserker you don't really care too much. You're gonna be running anger management regardless. But the unstoppable is really good. Again, not only does it enable T-bolts, but it's very nice for survivability. Other than that, this doubles the effect of berserking, which, you know, it's very nice. It goes from giving a 25% buff to 50%. It's not the biggest of things, but again, 30% is more than good enough. Now, I do want to point out, apparently this node was bugged on the PTR. If it still is, you're just gonna go for the increased attack speed here to get another attack speed breakpoint on Whirlwind. I'm just gonna assume it's fixed because it was only bugged on the PTR. It was actually not bugged on live as far as I know. So we're gonna just assume it was a PTR bug or someone didn't really test something properly. We're just gonna assume that it's okay. If it's not, I'm gonna update this, of course, right? Now, do remember that you're kind of relying on Wrath the Berserker. So it no longer pulls, it no longer does anything, just literally cast it on cooldown, okay? You cast it on cooldown, you cast your shouts on cooldown, even if there are no enemies, you just cast the things, okay? Now, going over the Paragon here, like we were talking about earlier, you have multiple steps here. If you actually go here to the starter, whoops, the starter guide is slightly smaller. Oh, it was not loading actually. You do have the rush one here, as you can see. It's literally just rushing Paragon boards. You're taking a couple of glyphs here and there. You're taking Marshall here. This is the one that's actually, it's really important. This is the one that's actually reducing the cooldown of your Wrath of Berserker. Once you get this, and you get like enough cooldown to get Wrath of Berserker down to like 30, 35, you can get away with like 37 or something. You'll basically have almost 100% uptime on it, enough for it to proc T-bolts by itself, which is one of the most important things, okay? Other than that, you're just gonna take Twister, and the other ones, you're just gonna be literally just beelining for the multipliers. Now, after you get the multipliers, like I talk about here, after you get the multipliers, there's a big jump between this and step 1, right? What you'll do, until you get enough points to just swap to step 1, just start going around and actually collecting. For example, here you start going around, poo, 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 and you get the glyph. Same thing over here, you start going over here, maybe you grab some Dust Devil sides, whatever, and you take the glyph. Same thing over here, keep going, take some berserk damage, maybe go get the crit over here, and you get the glyph, right? Once you have enough points, jump to step 1, just fully respec, go to step 1. You don't need to do this rush thing, but this will give you the most power right off the bat, okay? I do recommend doing it. It's what I do, because it just gives you a big burst of power early on to actually go up a couple of extra torment tiers. Now, when it comes to step 1, right, as you can see, we don't have a lot of points here. You're just going around. We do swap one board out. As you can see, we are no longer running the Force of Nature board that we have over here, simply because the other boards, Force of Nature, as you can see, it's only a 45 multiplier, while the other boards give you more than that. It kind of sucks that we're losing the Dust Devil size, but the other one just gives you more than that. As you can see, Flawless Technique gives you some critical strike chance and a bigger multiplier. Carnage gives you attack speed. Warbringer Doesn't really matter the fortify too much, but it gives you a bunch of resource, which of course you'll really like because you're playing Selig and Rama. And lastly, Blood Rage is just a 60% multiplier instead of 45 one, so that's why you're taking them. Other than that, let's actually go here to the last setup here. Of course, the realistic one is going to be this one. This is 267 Paragon points. Most people will not be able to go to the max one over here, but this one already basically has everything unlocked, right? Here, one thing that you can notice here is that we're not avoiding life nodes here, but if you actually go to the endgame one here, you are. There's a small difference here. As you can see, I'm really avoiding the life nodes here, over here as well, right? We're going, for example, there's the one that's really funny. Look at this one. You go over here, you go all the way around just to avoid these life nodes here. The reason you do this is, again, Selig. You really want to avoid these life nodes like it's the play, okay? Other than that, we are going over the glyphs here. We're gonna go, of course, we talked about already Marshall, really important for the cooldown uptime on Wrath of Berserker. Twister, of course, Twister build, incredible damage here. Exploit. This, we're only using this for the end game. On the push it up, I actually swap Exploit for, we're gonna actually cover that in a second. The changes for the push it up are very minimal. You're gonna be running Exploit here just for vulnerable uptime. You're gonna be running Wrath for the insane amount of additive and multiplier it gives you, and Challenger for the multiplier, which is very nice, and also gives you a good amount of strength, which is very lovely. Now, the positions, as you can see, on the start is gonna be Challenger, on the Warbringer is gonna be Wrath. This is the one that has the most, as you can see, the most dex, 74, really good. You're gonna be running Carnage, Exploit on the Carnage over here. It's decently dexed, and it will also be nice for the other glyph we're gonna put there for the push setup. Flawless Technique, we're gonna be running Marshall here. It's good for willpower, but it doesn't matter too much. And lastly, you're gonna be running Twister on the Blood Rage board because it's the one that has the most strength, which is very nice. Now, other than that, Mercenaries over here. Right here, as always, and Aldequin. Right here, you go over here, bada bim bada boom, to get this damage over here. It's also very nice defensively. Like, there's, I believe it's Vastian here. If you are gonna die, you get one shit dead, basically, which is very nice. And Fields of Languish, just put this to any skill you cast while in combat, and every now and again you get a very nice DR, which always is very good. We do have Warplans over here. These Warplans are not specific to builds, okay? I'm running these ones over here, as you can see. One thing I do want to point out, I have a guide about this. Infernal Horde, Hell Tides is going to be incredibly good for leveling, especially Hellmouth and Wrath and Wrath. But you can see what I normally take, generally speaking. Of course, depending on the strat you're doing, if you're doing roots, if you're doing some other stuff, you might have to change this up a bit. But generally speaking, the only one that's kind of specific to this build, it's this one over here that's taking Greek War because we want to get some gores while doing Helltide. The rest of this is very build generic, okay? Again, like we talk about here, adapt it to what you're doing, what you need. Now, other than that, we're gonna have some filters. The filters I talked about earlier in the video here. Right now, you have to go to the planner here. If you don't know, you can, whenever you are over here, you can click this thing here. It takes you to the planner, and you can get the loot filters here. Maybe whenever the season comes live, we will have them here. We've been working on a tech to be able to get multiple filters, so we can. Like, if someone is crazy enough like me to have multiple filters, then I might add on to this, by the way. Like, because these filters are mostly solo self-found. I might put some here for the people that like to trade as well. Some variations on them. We'll worry about that in a second, right? Other than that, let's actually jump up in here and go to the push one. There's not a lot of changes. When it comes to the gear, it basically stays the same. The only difference here is that we're gonna be introducing Gar. The reason you're introducing Gar is so you can give up some of the critical strike tempers on the weapon, so you can get even more attack speed to get the bigger attack speed breakpoint, right? Which again will increase your damage quite a lot. The other one, we also dropped the Ja rune, and we're gonna be running home. The reason we run home is to have basically 100% uptime on Warcry, and not only that, we're gonna actually swap the point we talked about earlier on Warcry for the vulnerable one. This means that Warcry by itself can apply 100% vulnerable uptime while pushing. This is incredibly good because it enables us to swap exploit out for Imbiber. Imbiber gives you up to 20% damage multi and a good amount of additional additive damage. Now, to run Imbiber, since you're playing a Selig build, you will, this is not properly embedded, I'll need to fix this. This was supposed to be Iron Skin here, it's just not embedding properly, but as you can see, we're talking about here. Iron Skin increases your HP by 10%. Now, this does make you slightly squishier, you're still more than tanky enough, and you don't want to be pressing Iron Skin 24/7. We do talk about it here in the skill section. You do not want to press this 24/7, you just want to press it to be able to use the pots. Once you're at 0 pots, you don't press this again until you happen to drop another pot to take it off, because the less pots you have, the more damage you do. And since you're playing Selig, you don't really care about pots. If you don't want to do this Iron Skin thing, because I know a lot of people don't like to play with Imbiber, if you don't like to play with Imbiber, just keep Exploit. It's a really good damage multi and additive, you can't really go wrong, okay? But yeah, guys, that's gonna be it. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything. No, I'm just gonna have to fix this, but yeah, that's gonna be it for the guide. Oh, I did forget about talking about the expertise. Just gonna be polearm on everything, and you're just gonna be using 200 mace like we talked about earlier as your main weapon. Right, anyway guys, that's gonna be it for the build guide. This one went a bit further, a bit longer than I was expecting. I'm gonna try to cut it down as much as I can. Regardless, thanks for watching. This is gonna be the full guide. I might do an update for like just covering the end game once we actually figure some stuff out on the season, right? I might, if the life setup ends up being slightly better for pushing, I might put the life setup out, but considering life, it's going to be much harder to actually deal with survivability, and since the league is actually much better damage-wise than it was last season, comparatively, right? It's probably going to be this way. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or any doubts, anything, leave them down below, and yeah, I hope you enjoy this season for another Whirlwind Supremacy season. Let's go. Bye-bye, guys. See you next time. Oh yeah. BitDropper, friend of the channel, has been cooking up some Whirlwind Mighty Throw build. I might cover it, I'll talk to him, I might make a video about it as well. It's really fun, it's also very strong. So if you don't want to play Dust Devils, you could just go around throwing axes with Whirlwind as well. Yeah, anyway, bye-bye, see you next time, or on the stream. I'm gonna be streaming on the League Start over on Twitch and here on YouTube as well, so bye-bye. Twitch does have drops though, bye-bye.